Our distinguished guest today is Gerald Winkle. He is the volunteer recruiter regional manager for the American Red Cross. He's been with the Red Cross for 11 years. He's married with 2 children. He lives in Redlands, and he has assisted with over 1,000 house fire disasters. He has also been deployed across the country to assist with disasters nationwide 7 times. His presentation is Mission Impact Overview, Gerald Winkle. Gerald Winkle, Mission Impact Overview.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Want to thank the EVA, the Speakers Bureau, and Sharon for making this happen. My name is Gerald Winkle. I'm the Regional Recruitment Manager for the Red Cross. And today I just wanted to present on all the good things that the Red Cross, or to be more precise, the volunteers of the Red Cross provide every day to our communities. You probably know some things that we do already, blood, first aid maybe, water safety, but there are many, many other things that we do that most people don't know, which is good, right? That means you haven't been in a position where you needed our help. So I always joke, you know, you never want to see me at my job, because usually that means there's a disaster and I'm trying to help you. So just wanted to talk about those things today, and hopefully educate you a little bit on all the wonderful things that the American Red Cross does. Next slide, please. One of our biggest objective is disaster relief within the communities. And on the next slide, you will see some impressive numbers. And by the way, those are just numbers nationwide from the first quarter, our first quarter, which is July 1st through September 30th. We had over 75 big disasters, what we consider big disasters, as you can see on the map here. And believe it or not, this is a quiet year, quiet quarter. And we were pretty lucky that the hurricane season was not as active as predicted. Very lucky that a few of the storms actually veered off because before they even made landfall. And then on the wildfire side, we also dodged a bullet. It could have been much worse in California and some other areas in the West Coast. The things we do on the next slide, you'll see some other numbers. Mainly what we do in those disasters is we open up shelters to house those who don't have a place to come home to anymore. And then we feed them, of course, right? We provide meals, snacks. We also provide wraparound services, mental health services, spiritual care in those shelters, and work with partners to help everybody come along and finish that road, sometimes long road to recovery if you lost your home. It's quite an undertaking. On the next slide, I want to highlight the California wildfire response, which was very devastating, very unexpected to see a disaster like that in an urban area here in California. I'm sure you remember all the pictures of the fires here. Nobody expected something like this, and it really will probably be a big lesson for our emergency managers and how we treat wildfires and how we assess risk going forward in the future. The American Red Cross was one of the many community partners who helped those residents there, and we actually are still on the ground in terms of long-term recovery, providing financial aid and some other services for that as well. The next slide, I want to talk about the things, or one thing that most people actually, luckily they don't know about, that is happening often, but the most requested service from the Red Cross is actually responding to a single family home fire. And here in Southern California, on average, the Red Cross gets called out to 2 of those situations every day where people are displaced. On the next slide, I have some other statistics there. What we do in those cases where the residence is not able to go back to their house, we get called out by the fire department for assistance. And typically within an hour, we send a team of trained volunteers to help out with financial material aid. And they can also facilitate mental health, and spiritual care as well, and provide additional things that the household needs. In regards to preparedness, we have a campaign on the next slide, talks about our home fire campaign, which we started in 2014. And the goal is to diminish or to minimize the fatalities due to home fires. And I'm happy to say that ever since 2014, we have recorded over 2,500 lives that were saved because of the installation of smoke alarms. And yeah, it is sometimes shocking. We have events where we have those installation events where we go on communities, invite partners to install those smoke alarms. And I'm always surprised how many residences don't have working smoke alarms. They think they're working, and then we take them off. There's not even a battery in there. So luckily, we can provide them for free throughout the nation. We do this program, and if you're ever in need of a smoke alarm, call your local Red Cross chapter. You can make an appointment to get those installed. Probably one of the highlights of my Red Cross career was that we had a fire in Palm Springs, and as soon as I pulled in, I recognized the neighborhood and the mobile home park because we were there 2 years ago, actually installing the smoke alarms, which allowed the residents to make it out unharmed. That was really great. That's worth it right there. On the next slide, I just want to talk a little about the international services that the American Red Cross does. There's the umbrella of the International Federation of the Red Cross that deals with all the international conflicts. But as a national society, the American Red Cross, as you can see on the next slide, also provides support, mostly financial support, to other countries that are in need of some knowledge or financial aid. We typically do not deploy internationally. Those are really subject matter experts in communications or in cash voucher programs. So it's not as many folks as one would expect, but there's an opportunity for international deployments as well. On the next slide, one special disaster response was when we, as the American Red Cross, actually provided help to the Canadian Red Cross when they had their very devastating wildfires on tribal lands earlier this year. And usually it's the other way around. They come to help us. So it was nice to see that we could return the favor. And we had many volunteers deployed there to provide shelter support. Even from our area here, San Bernardino and Riverside County, they got out there and spent 3 weeks to help the population there. Another thing that you probably are very well accustomed to is the blood supply. The American Red Cross provides 40% of the nation's blood supply. On the next slide, again, just some numbers. We collect whole blood, we collect platelets and plasma, and then we make this available to our partner hospitals. We collect them in blood drives. So we're always looking for partners who can host those blood drives to make this happen. And over the last year, we focused, we have a new initiative that talks about sickle cell. On the next slide, there's some information on it. Sickle cell is an immune disease that is very devastating. And it's really hard to find the right blood product for those who are affected by it. So we're trying to diversify our donor base so we have more to select from and find more matches for those instances. Yeah, this is a great program. The next slide, we talk about our support for military and veterans family. We are usually represented on every military base that is out of states. For our area here, we actually partner with a camp in Kuwait. Right now, we are collecting care packages for them and hoping to send it to them. We're aiming for 1,000 to make their holidays a little bit brighter when they're away from home. On the next slide, again, some statistics about all the impact that our volunteers, again, provide. Right now, we have 19 locations abroad in those camps. One of the most requested service here is actually the need of emergency communications. When they are deployed, when they're in the battlefield, especially, it's not like they can pick up the phone and communicate with their family members, right? And vice versa, family cannot communicate with the soldiers. So the Red Cross is actually has the task or the privilege, I should say, to facilitate this communication with the command. And we have caseworkers who make this happen. So, for example, if there's an emergency stateside, usually it's somebody's about to die or so. We're trying to get the service member back to the States before they pass away, so they have a chance to say goodbye. And then we also provide financial assistance to them to make this return happen. Could be also births and some other instances where the service member is needed back home. On the next slide, the last service department we have is training services. On the next slide, I highlighted some numbers in regards, one back, yeah, about the life-saving first aid, CPR, and AED training. We do this throughout the nation, where we provide the certification course. Our disaster services actually came up with a class we can offer for free. It's a 30-minute workshop. It's called Hands-Only CPR. It just focuses on the most important part of CPR, the compressions. And we are able to do this for free, so it's a nice refresher or a nice course to bring in the basics, the most important part of the whole CPR cycle. Of course, water safety and babysitting, those are also different aspects of our safety programs that we provide to the community every day. On the next slide, the final slide, I wouldn't do my job right as a recruiter if I didn't want to offer you the chance to volunteer with the Red Cross. So we have many volunteer opportunities that will fit every schedule, and we work in every community. Of course, want to encourage you to give blood if you're able to, or if not, maybe host a blood drive for your organization or your employer. And also invite you to one of those sound alarm campaigns where we go out in communities and install those alarms. You don't necessarily have to climb on the ladder and install them. We also provide education to the household. So this is a nice day where we start at 8 o'clock, do a little bit of training, and then at 9 we go out in the community, be back by 12 for lunch and save some lives. It's a really fun event. And with that, I made it in time. Guess that, yes.
Talking about the volunteers, as a retired teacher, I'm still very interested in young people. Do you have any high school age, under 18 volunteer opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. We love our youth, and we actually have a program. It's called Red Cross Youth Clubs that we try to establish in every high school, just like all the other clubs that are out there. We're promoting leadership skills. We talk about international humanitarian law with the students, disaster preparedness, blood drives, all those things. They kind of create like their own organization there with a president, secretary, and treasurer. And that's how we try to hook them early. And a lot of them actually stayed on or even became employees after. Yeah.
Continuation schools where we were anyway, kids could get actually some academic credit for a certain amount of time put in as a volunteer.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The community, the club activity counts as community hours, so they can take this for their resumes, for their college application, and we also allow them to get CPR certified for free, which is a nice benefit. Yeah.
Wonderful. Is there a question online? We'd like to have the online people participate as well. We had a question here from Tom. Any questions from Our audience online? Any additional questions out here? I have a quick question for you. I'm not sure if it's quick. In Latin America, I'm from Mexico, as you might know. In Latin America, sometimes the Red Cross is misunderstood because it might be affiliated with the government. And so can you talk a little bit about the image of the Red Cross, maybe in other countries, but clearly you're representing a very good, wholesome image of the Red Cross in the US. So thank you for your work. But can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you, Sharon. So every national society is independent from the international network. And the services that each national society renders could vary widely. It's not uncommon in most countries that the American Red Cross is part of the healthcare system, especially when it comes to ambulance services. I'm from Germany, as you probably can tell, not hiding it too well. The Red Cross is actually one of the ambulance providers of the nation. In Mexico, for example, the Mexican Red Cross is trained in search and rescue. So they have a much deeper impact in the emergency response framework for each country. In Japan, for example, they run the whole national healthcare system. So it just depends. Some other countries, they may not offer any of the services, but with the differences, everybody thinks, or a lot of folks thinks that when they come to another country, that the national society there of the Red Cross provides the same services. So when we try to reach out to immigrant communities out here in the States, we sometimes have the challenge that they think the American Red Cross is a government agency, and especially for those who are undocumented, there's some hesitance, lately a very big hesitance and resistance sometimes even, that they want to engage with us. And one of our missions is always to let them know we don't care about anybody's immigration status, or we just help everyone. If you need help, we don't care where you're from or who you are. We just help them, and we don't collect any of the information. So even if the government would ask us for that information, we just don't have it. And because a lot of the immigrant communities out here in Southern California are from Southern America, Central America, we have this resistance there, and that's one of the challenges we all constantly try to work against there.
Well, you're doing a great job preparing that image here. So thank you very much for everything you do.
Thank you. Excellent.
Our QS candidate, April Gillis, is a faith-led leader. She carries her faith in Christ with her in all that she does. First of all, let me give you a little of a Toastmaster background. April joined Toastmasters 16 years ago in 2009 in a corporate club called GE Power Toasters. She rejoined Toastmasters in 2016
Walk out there, I think.
with her home club, Joe Allen Silverados, and this is now in Area 12. She's also a member of Advanced Club Road to DTM. April has worked behind the scenes supporting District 12 in various committee roles over the last 5 years, and last year served as Division C Division Director. In her professional background, she worked 9 years in public health through a community-based nonprofit agency. She is now a small business owner supporting services-based small businesses to improve their operations with her company. We have people for that. Her speech title tonight is From Lockdown to Linked Up. April Gillis, From Lockdown to Linked Up.
Where were you on March 19th of 2020?
At home.
Someone in the room said, at home. That's right. We were all ordered that day to stay home. Do you remember what that felt like? Do you remember the thoughts going through your head? This became the beginning of the lockdown, COVID-19. Prior to March 19th of 2020, I was working as a project coordinator in public health for a community-based nonprofit agency. Our goal was to decrease health disparities in the African American community. We thrived on being in person. We had a wonderful, beautiful executive office in downtown Riverside, here in Southern California. We have an audience all over the country. I loved our office. It was small, it was quaint. There was red paint all over the walls. There were paintings from local artists that donned the walls. So as we worked on our grants, sitting at our computers, typing away, we could look at the walls, the pictures for inspiration. We would keep our door open as we were in downtown Riverside so that people could walk in to our office. We welcomed passerbys so that they could find out what was going on with our programs. We put flyers on our windows so people could find out what was going on in the community. Life before March 19th was quite different. In our executive office, I had a desk. Behind me was a beautiful painting, as I mentioned. But we had many different grants out in the community. We used this thing that became known as Zoom, but back then, it was an adjective, not a noun. We had a project where we met one time in person in 2018 in Northern California. Our team was all over California. One of our professors told us during that meeting, there's this thing called Zoom that I would like for us to use. She described how exciting it was and team building it was to have everyone be able to see their faces. As a professor, she was used to conference calls. How many people remember conference calls? How many people still remember the password to your conference call line? Many people do. It was new for us, but we tried it. After that one meeting in person, we began to meet every other week online to meet our objectives and to go out and do the work we needed to do in the community. We would get an email and we would click a button and all of a sudden we were in this box. But for us, it was just once every other week. It became a running joke about me. Has anyone heard of Carmen Sandiego? Where in the world will April Gillis be? Because I was always somewhere different when we were taking our meetings. One day, I was in our office and they could see the paintings behind me. Another day, they could see the back seat of my car, which I learned to keep very clean. One day, I may have been leaving a meeting for one of our grantors. Every time, it was somewhere different, but it was a joke. But it was fun, and then it was awareness. It made our team feel connected. One of the interns that we had on another project, she went to school in Riverside, but she lived in Los Angeles. Many people think California is small, but for those who don't know, that's an hour and a half on a good day with no traffic. She would drive to our office and we would meet, we would work on our projects. In February, she began to tell me stories about her family overseas. She began to tell me how excited she was to come to school so she could go to the store and buy masks, toilet paper, and noodles. I thought, that's interesting, but it was over there. She would spend more money on the shipping than the actual items themselves because she told me they needed to make sure that the recipients of those items, that the recipients actually got them because people would steal their mail. Wow, I thought, that's over there. So we began to get to the end of February. She started to tell me how an hour and a half away in Los Angeles, their Costco started running out of materials. So she was coming to the Inland Empire again for the same materials. Wow. But it still seemed like it was over there. March 4th came the state of emergency. And on March 19th, our executive office, the state of California, was locked down. What was once our safe space, our office, was now moved into our homes. We were ordered to take our computers home. We didn't know for how long. How long could it be, right? We would think. A few weeks, maybe a month. I recall we wanted to keep the vigor, the routine of going into that beautiful office, the freedom of going to see our clients. After a month, 2 months, 90 days, there was no end in sight. We had to make some decisions. Our home began to become everything. Our home space, our workspace, our school space, our worship space, our social space. It became everything. There was a shared vulnerability and uncertainty from all of us, all over the world. After 3 months, we had to make a decision. My coworker and I, we were a part of one of the grants that was centered around mental health for African American women in churches. A couple of key things. We had to go to church, but the churches were, say it with me, locked down. How could we do it? Could it be done? We had hope. This thing called Zoom, where my background was always a running joke, could it be an answer for us? Our team certainly didn't think so. So Selena and I created what we called an experiment zone. We got ourselves a Zoom account, and we started tinkering around to figure out, how does this thing work? What does it do? What does it look like on the other side? Before, we would just get an email and push a button. But what could it do for us? In our experiment zone, we were determined to come up with a plan to link us together during the shutdown. Who is our audience? Our audience for our grant, again, was women in churches. But who were they? We had women from every generation. We had the silent generation, the greatest generation, the baby boomer generation, Generation X, millennials, and a couple of Gen Zs sprinkled in there. So we had to consider the generations. We had to consider their access to technology, their willingness to embrace technology. Were they using technology? All of these things we had to consider in our experiment zone. We would create a room. We had to figure out what a room was. We didn't know before. So we figured out what a Zoom room was. And we figured out where the buttons were. And we started to tinker around. What does it look like if you're on an Android phone? What does it look like if you're on an iPhone, an iPad, a PC, a tablet, all of these different devices? We needed to be able to describe to our audience how to maneuver this thing called Zoom. Now think about it. We're used to Zoom now, but imagine if you remember when TV was created, Zoom in a way is like a two-way television. You can look at the TV, but you can cook, you can walk around in your unmentionables or whatever you do, but there's nobody looking back at you. There's nobody talking back at you. But all of a sudden, this phenomenon called Zoom, it's multi-way communication. The camera's looking out, you're looking in, sound is going out, sound is coming in. All of these different dynamics are happening at one time. We got creative. We said, okay, we have to help people turn on their camera. So we said, if you have an iPad, hold it up, tap it really fast. There's gonna be controls that pop up on the top of your screen. See that blue button on the bottom? Click that. There it is. That's your camera. We could see you. Can you see us? Ha. Your microphone, it's on. How do you describe it? Again, tap it fast. Boop. They're gonna come up because the Zoom controls would disappear. How do you explain that? But we were able to get our audience to trust us. If they were on the phone, everyone knew how to dial on the phone because, again, in our experiment zone, we had to not only sell our team, we had to sell our churches and our audience too. So everyone knew how to dial on the phone. So we figured out how to make sure people could join on the phone. We used to have tables where we mixed everybody up every week to sit at a different table to meet someone new. So we recreated that emotion with breakout rooms. So we had to learn, what is a breakout room? How do you use it? How do you move people back and forth between the rooms? Could we get them to trust us? In our experiment zone, it worked out great. We sold the idea to our team, kind of. We got if it works, every time as we prepared for our first class. We'll take the if. Sometimes you just have to go on faith. With that if, we were able to sign up our first class, our experiment zone learning. We were putting it to the test. We were able to get women to sign up for the class. We were able to play music in the room. We were able to show them how to turn on their cameras. Something interesting that we learned is a new language developed. In person, you would never walk around with a picture in front of your face. Yet on Zoom, many people would join with their face hidden, with a picture, or have an interesting background. Our evaluators, because this was an evaluated program, it was data-driven, some of them were offended when they came to our program. Turn on your camera. We want to see your face. But as program managers, what we learned was that a new language emerged. Their camera off did not mean that they weren't listening. Their presence in the room, talking about mental health for African American women in churches, was already stigmatizing. But their presence in the room said they were engaged. Their cameras off was sometimes for them to feel safe. What we learned is when they felt safe and trust was there, they would turn off their camera. They would show their face. They would use the chat. We learned that the picture was more than just a picture. It was an expression of their comfort and their willingness to learn, to participate. Our experiment zone for class 1 was a success. Man, thank you. Yes. Class 2, we're ready. We've learned some things. We feel like we're ready in the saddle. We start getting our registration list. Something interesting started to take place. We started getting registrants from New York, North Carolina, Florida. And we thought, how did that happen? We've only advertised to churches in California that we talked to while we were in person. How are we getting registrants from other states? Could we have registrants from other states? We didn't know. It was a problem that needed to be solved that we never anticipated. We talked to our evaluators because we had to make sure our fidelity of our data and who we set out for our funders. It was $1 million grant over 5 years. So we had to make sure for our funders that we had the integrity and fidelity of our program. And they let us know, as long as our target audience, women in Southern California, churches, were prioritized, women from all over the country were welcome. Class 1 was so successful. Women started sharing it with their sisters, their mothers, their cousins, their friends. They too wanted them to have the same freedom and learning that they had received. It didn't cost us any extra. We used flat rate mailing boxes with USPS, United States Postal Service. So it cost the same amount of money to send it across town to Riverside as it did to New York. Imagine that. We did have to check the weather because now we had to be aware of storms happening in different parts of the country that might delay our packages. But our experiment zone, when put to execution, succeeded. We were linked together during the lockdown. Finding out the weather patterns, finding out how many women were spreading the good news to their family and friends. We found out that our experiment zone, our hope, was a success. We were able to complete 3 or 4 more programs, and these were 8-week programs at a time over Zoom. And we were able to expand in a way we never saw coming. This meeting here today would not have existed in the format in which we have our audience all over the country and in person today. We were locked down, but we learned to link up. Sure, many are tired of a thing called Zoom. But as we continue to move forward, I implore us to not forget what we learned, the shared vulnerability, the tools that we have, the opportunity to link together that we learned during lockdown. Let's not leave that behind, but take that with us. We need generational connection. We need cross-county, national connection. We were locked down, but we're forever linked up.
Good job. Good job. Our next speaker is a fairly new Toastmaster from my home club. I've been working with him a little bit. He has a short speech of great meaning. His hopes at some point would be to become a qualified speaker, and he wants to give this, the whole speech at some point, to 13 to 16-year-old young people. Right in my ballpark, where my thoughts and feelings are. John Kelly, Finding Light in the Darkness, John Kelly. And tell me again, how much do you, 8 to 10 is what you want for this one? 6 to 8. 6 to 8 minutes. What's the chance? Yep. And if you want to walk around, you can walk around with this.
When I was a kid, I used to think adults had everything going on. They had a secret playbook for life. Turns out nobody does. Life doesn't come with an instruction manual. It's messy, unpredictable, and sometimes really hard. Excuse me. My own family taught me that. 3 generations before me faced struggles which just too heavy to carry. My dad battled depression, Alzheimer's. Some days he knew me, some days he didn't. He'd say, "You look familiar. Are you the milkman?" "No, I'm your son." And he said, "I'm your son. He laughed. "You should come over more often and visit." My grandfather believed his wife had already passed away until she came into the kitchen. The rumor of my death is wrong again. My great-great-grandfather battled money problems back then. They didn't have credit cards. She worked hard. Bad luck. A lot of worry. If he was around today, he'd probably be on the phone. "Representative, please." We think he used a gun. My family went through a lot of pain back then. Didn't talk about it for a long time. Didn't go to therapy. Didn't post about their feelings or talk about it. What I've learned is silence is heavy. When we don't talk about our hurts, that's why I believe the more we share our feelings, life becomes a little bit better. I also lost 3 friends to suicide. Just really hit hard. One jumped off a roof. Another used a gun. Another hung himself. Suicide is a permanent solution for a temporary problem. I remember one left a phone on my phone. I thought it was a pocket dial. Then I remember what really happened. I sat there looking at the screen. What could I have said? What could I have done? That's when I learned silence. Excuse me. That's when I learned pain sometimes doesn't always look like a smile. Sometimes a smile looks like a smile. Sometimes it looks or it sounds like I'm fine. And that's why it's so important to check in on those people. I know it sounds heavy, but I promise there's room for laughter too, because humor doesn't erase pain. It helps us survive it. When my dad's memory started slipping, he once said, "Son, I think I'm losing my mind." I told him, "Dad, that's okay. You raised me. It runs in the family." He laughed so hard, he forgot what we were laughing about. Laughter reminds us that we're still alive, still connected. It's like a small flashlight when everything else feels dark. I want to leave you with this. Every one of us will feel dark moments, sometimes feel lost, scared, or alone. Those moments won't last forever. And if you ever feel that way, please reach out. Talk to someone. You don't have to carry this alone. And in the US, you could call or text 988 Suicide Crisis Lifeline. There's always someone ready to listen day or night. My goal here for tonight is if I could save one life, that would be amazing. You will also, because even in the darkest times, there's still light. And sometimes that light begins with a smile or even a laugh. Thank you.
Our next speaker might just be a little more light. I'm not sure. We shall see. Brian has been here, actually has had a chance to speak, not yet a qualified speaker, but is shooting for that as a goal. Brian Porras, his topic is not so secret technique, not so secret technique. Brian Porras. We use about 10 with some time for questions, right?
Yeah, 10 for each.
Yeah.
Connie, your time, right? So 10 minutes. I'll be talking. Can you hear me? I'll be talking for about 10. So let me know when I have like a minute, and then I'll be doing a Q&A for 10.
Questions on it.
Okay. I can also talk a bit shorter too. It's fine. Oh, also my speech will not be a lighter theme than John's. If you were there, I'm so sorry you had to see that. I'm so sorry. I won't be doing that that tonight. It's very different. and I'm a little emotional after John's speech, actually putting myself together. All right, you ready? Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Brian Porras, and I am a victim of child abuse. Growing up, I wasn't allowed to talk to anyone, wasn't allowed to have friends, wasn't allowed to speak to anyone. I wasn't allowed to go to school because my older brothers were bullied. I didn't learn how to read. I didn't learn how to write. I still can't write, but don't worry about that. I didn't learn how to do math. I had to figure out equations on my own. At the age of 14, I told my mom, I begged her, my biological mother, I told her I couldn't read. Please do something. I can't understand math. I want to learn music. Can dad teach me the piano? My mom threw a book in front of me and said, this will teach you how to read. I can't read. So I never learned. Age of 19, I opened my first book. I became a speed reader. Now I read fine. I do math great. In school, they called me human calculator. My parents actually got so sick of me not knowing how to do anything, they threw me into school. This is about the same time I left my house. I grew up going from different household to household, calling different people mom or dad. Now, why am I sharing this with you? Because I originally wasn't going to, but John, I heard him speak. And I felt it had an attachment to what I'm going to go through now. See, I may not be able to speak as a kid. I would often cover my mouth. I would shut up. I go 3 days without speaking. By the way, going 3 days without speaking, it will not get your voice any deeper, so don't try it, okay? And I'm not a heavy smoker, if that's what you think. It's all natural. But when they put me on stage at church because the high schoolers were running the service, I gave a sermon. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't nervous for the service. Around 16, I had to get a job and start making my own money, so I became a martial arts instructor. I taught a class. It was called Street Survival, which is a really bad name for a class where you teach somebody 1,000 ways to kill a man. But we can't call it Street Killer for legal reasons. I could speak in front of people. I could teach, but once I got out of the gym, I couldn't talk to people one-on-one. What was going on? My brain was backwards. Most people fear public speaking and they can have personal conversation. I'm sure plenty of you can have personal conversations, but the world, number one fear of mankind is public speaking. Number two is falling. You're afraid of heights. And number three is death. Now, I'm not afraid of public speaking. I am afraid of heights. And I don't know if I'm afraid of death. I haven't tried it yet. Not looking forward to it. But there's nothing to worry about. The worst thing that can happen is you walk up on stage, you fall off, and you die. And I don't mind public speaking. I don't mind getting in front of people. I don't mind walking around being a little more whimsical. I'm favoring this side of the room because 90% of you are lopsided over here. I'm kind of wondering why Sarah won't join us. And not to forget about my friends online as well. And Rob. Thank you, Rob. What was my technique? I had one secret technique that allowed me to public speak. As somebody who had a rather abusive childhood, all I could do was think about what other people thought of me. I couldn't share anything from myself. Everything was external. Everything was what everyone else wanted. Well, I sat there almost as a vegetable, unable to move. My primary technique for speaking is I see things from the audience's perspective. Now, this may not surprise some of you. There's some advanced speakers in the room. They call it audience focused. I don't really like that term, audience focused. They're asking you what the audience wants, trying to give the audience what they want, trying to be focused on the audience. It's good for beginners. I think it's great for beginners. You're looking at the audience, you're taking the eyes off yourself. But audience perspective is trying to put your eyes where somebody is sitting, looking directly at them. Does the speaker have body language? Does he have different momentum in his words? Does he have different tones when he flows? What does the audience want to see? I have to remember what I look like on stage. When I'm watching from the audience, I vision myself and what it would look like when I'm up there to see from everybody else. Do I have a deep voice? Do I have a weird voice? Do I use my body language? Am I short? Am I tall? I practice in the mirror. I see from the audience's perspective. This doesn't just help in speaking. It helps me in my daily life. It helps me speak to my friends, wonder what they're going through. I'm trying to share the one single technique and how I do it, but I'm rabbit trailing because of John's speech. I'm just thinking about how when I was in high school and my friends, they were depressed, they would text me these things about loading their weapon and wanting to take their own lives, how I would just have to look from their side of things and take action. I would call them up, I would stop it. I called the police on one of my friends when I was a kid, and I stopped him from doing those sorts of things. And through my life, what has got me through, what has helped me is seeing other people and what they think. Your brain is one very small object compared to the 8 billion people in the world. It's like reading a book. I'm sure a lot of you read self-improvement books in here. You're gaining wisdom and knowledge from someone else's perspective. I read John C. Maxwell. I read, was it Gary Smalley? What's his name? Whatever. I read these books, and I'm drawing a blank on their names, but yeah, I read a lot of success books, and you're drawing knowledge from other people. These are thousands of years from other people who have gathered different informations. And I think what we're missing nowadays is the human touch. Everybody's going to ChatGPT for everything. No offense to that, but I just Googled the percentage of people that have a fear of public speaking, and Google said 75%. Now, excuse my language, but that's a load of dog water. I asked a man in the hallway while I was out there pacing, getting a little bit of energy off, how he felt about public speaking because he was a hospital employee. He said it terrifies him. He said it made it hard for him to get through college. What we do is important. When we speak, it's important. As presenters, as the man talking about the Red Cross, I apologize for forgetting your name, to the job applications, to the qualified speaker, what we do is very important here. This is not a 25% talent in the world. This is a 1%. I would argue this is a 0.1% talent in the entire world. And it has to do with connection. The speech is not the speech that you're giving. The speech is what's hitting the audience's ears. A public speaker is nothing without his audience. If there was no one in this room, I would not be a public speaker. I would be clinically insane. I'd just be rambling. Everything we do here is so important. A very foolish man once said, "Sticks and stones can break your bones, but words can never hurt you." But a really clever rapper once said, "Sticks and stones can break your bones, but words can save a life or make you take your own, so change your tone." It's me, I'm the rapper. I rap, by the way, but I'm not going to do it here. This is not appropriate. Not the right attire. Where was I? Sticks and stones. Yeah, sticks and stones. Thank you. The amount of wisdom we can gain from other people and the connections that we have is nothing to scoff at. I wanted to talk about how if you're trying to make an impact, we're hearing it today. We're hearing people speak into us, and it's never too late to make an impact. I may look like I'm still in high school, but I'm 29. Okay. Colonel Sanders didn't he founded KFC in his 60s. Was it guy who owned McDonald's, Ray Kroc, in his 50s, right? Jesus didn't start his ministry till he was 33. Till then he was just a carpenter. It's never too late to make an impact. It's about, what was it? Forget that. Pardon me, I'm gathering my thoughts. I was supposed to share a technique with you all, which is I see things from the audience's perspective and how it gets rid of the nerves and everything on stage. And I wanted to share with you that I have multiple techniques. I have breathing exercises. I have preparations on stage. I have things I do off. I record my voice. I watch myself in the mirror. Some of you are advanced in here. Some of you are starting more fresh. And I would actually like to open up to a brief Q&A to where if anybody has any questions about stage nerves and how to get that away from yourself, if I can help answer those questions. So we can do a Q&A now. I don't know if okay. Anybody have any questions about anybody? Yes.
Your age, have you noticed a difference in handling nerves from younger generations than you versus your same generation or older generations?
Exactly. And that's why I love that question. That's what I do about my technique. It almost feels like cheating. So when you're putting yourself inside the audience's perspective, age becomes less of a thing. When I was growing up, the only friends I could really have were adults, to elders, and now I get along with Gen Z all the way back to the boomers. And when you're speaking to different audience members, when you're checking from their perspective, it eliminates that barrier, that social barrier, right? I grew up in, was it the millennials, the depressed generation, okay? When I'm seeing from someone else's perspective, yeah, she agrees. When you're seeing from someone else's perspective, it takes that away because I know they didn't grow up the same way that I did. I try to get into their head, which leads me to a very important topic. John C. Maxwell talks about how manipulation and motivation, there's a very fine line between them. So when I'm getting into someone's head, I'm not trying to manipulate them, but it's a very fine line. And that's how I feel when it comes to different generations in age. I'm not trying to manipulate somebody because I know they grew up different. I knew they grew up in a different different world at this point with all the technological advancements we're making. I try to motivate them because I try to see what they've been through. Right? Anybody else have any questions about nerves? Anything online? No? No questions? Okay. Well, then, Sharon?
You said you had a very difficult childhood,
I did.
but I know in your school stories presentation here at ISB, you shared how in high school, you just became a talker. You would do the final presentation for your group projects. And that's how you got through high school and graduated. And then you also mentioned that you gave a talk, like a sermon.
Mhm.
So my question to you is, what switched within you to empower yourself to use your voice and to get that confidence to speak?
That's a really good question. I probably have to dig back a bit. There's definitely an element of survival to it. There's an element of survival. I was very malnourished, and I had to find a way to do something to get a job, to speak in front of people. I would hope you don't have to go through that. What specifically clicked for me to allow me to go up, I no longer wanted to live life by the sidelines. I was getting jealous of everything. Envy. It was a demon within me. I saw other people doing things, hanging out with people, having friends, having relationships, and I kept living life by the sidelines. I wasn't ready. I wasn't in the moment. I was getting ready to get ready. I was getting ready to get ready to get ready all the time. You ever meet someone like that? They're just getting ready to get ready. No, I need to put myself in the moment. So really, when my martial arts instructor said, you have some of the best technique, teach class, I have to thank him for that. Because he didn't say, do you want to teach class, Brian? You're 14 years old. He said, teach class. And they went out and got a coffee while I taught class. So what I have to thank is people in my life who already did it better than me. And I followed them. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Question? Right. Thank you.
So you are thinking about doing a tall tale. That's wonderful. Why, you ask? For some people, it may be the opportunity to challenge yourself to something you've never done before. Also, a tall tale is fun. It's fun for the audience, and it's fun for you. It's a great avenue of creativity, and you'll find out more about that. And did I mention there will be trophies recycled? Wait, what is a tall tale? Well, my definition, and I think it is Toastmasters International's definition, a 3 to 5 minute presentation that is a story that's exaggerated, clever, humorous, and it ends with a twist. Some tips. start at the end. Start at the end. Get your twist. Get that clever play on words. And then you build the story up to be that ending. Make sure that you don't give away that clever twist. I've seen it happen a time or two, perhaps even with the choice of the speech title. Ah, I know where that's going. You have to be careful about that. Let me see what my other tips are. Oh, yes. Make sure you use exaggeration, like the old Pecos Bill or Paul Bunyan, or just humor or cleverness. And it could be in your characters' names or places. In other words, somebody doesn't live in a small town. They live in Possum Gulch. Or the name of the person or the characters that you choose in your story. Delivery, be a little wild and crazy. This is your chance to get up there and perhaps use costumes. I mean, some people do that, right, Richard? Use, Homer does, or props, and we'll talk a little bit about that with Tom. And when you give that twist at the end, make sure you slow down and emphasize it because you want the audience to get it. And I'll give you some examples. These are 5 examples of what I consider to be really fun tall tales. And I'll only give you the twist at the end and maybe just a little bit lead up. I won't tell you the tall tales. The first one was my inspiration. Years ago, Bob Palmer gave this tall tale. And when I heard that, I thought, I want to do that. He told a story about there being another regatta, a sailing competition, and all the guys were getting ready for it. And then a women's team wanted to enter. Oh my goodness, I forget, Captain so-and-so. He would have none of that. So he had a ploy where he somehow dove down and he drilled a hole into the women's boat. And the punchline, the clever twist, was he caused the leak of women boaters. And there's where Bob had to make sure that he was giving it with all this gesture and body language. And then for that, he slowed down so the audience did get that punchline. My first one that I gave was about there being a paper mill. And they made all kinds of paper, but one place in that mill, they made notebook paper. So they needed to have machines to punch out the holes to make the notebook paper. And after the workers had gone home and before the janitors came in, there was stacks and stacks of holes all over the floor. The little mice that lived in the walls, they would come up and gather them up. And back there in Mouseville, they had houses and toads but there was one mouse, oh, he just dreamed of being able to climb a mountain or ski down a mountain. And he made it happen. And so my line was, he made a mountain out of a whole mill. I don't know who did this one, but this is one of my favorites. It talked about a lady named Kathy or Catherine. She died and they had issues with moving her casket from one place to another. What do you call it that you have the casket in? Maybe it wasn't available and they put it into a truck or something. Anyway, it slid down. Oh no, and it popped open and there was decaffeinated Kathy.
Marvin Herringer.
Oh, okay. But I thought, boy, that was Who would ever think of that? She was depoffinated Kathy. My husband, Tom, he, as I said, you can use costuming off. I helped him get ready. And he showed up with a bare chest covered up by a vest. And I made made stripes on him. But anyway, he told this story about showing his manhood and going out and conquering all these challenges out in the Amazon someplace. And then as he would come, the chief would, for his valor in fighting off some giant snakes or whatever, give him a certain color on his chest. And then he did something else. And he got a red one and then a white for fighting something else and a blue one for something else. And at the end, then Tom divulged that he would proudly wear his Tarzan stripes forever. Tarzan fighting. And one more. I had a dear friend, and her favorite movie was The Wizard of Oz. And she came up with a story about being out on the farm, and they had a turkey named Bosley. She went there, but somebody lost a ring, and they searched all over that farm and could never find it. Well, you know what happens when you have a turkey? Things progress and the turkey becomes turkey dinner. And as they're preparing it, the ring was found in the Gizzard of Oz. Where do you find ideas? Well, you kind of gather from some of those, but common phrases, sayings, quotations, advertising, slogans, maybe movie title, TV, book, news items. Tom and I once took a long trip. We were driving across country and we just thought about them, and we had dozens of ideas, those little punchlines, those twists that we could possibly, maybe not, but possibly could come to fruition as another tall tale. So that pretty much concludes what I was going to tell you, and then Tom would give specifics about next month. But I hope some of you are going to be here with your tall tale to introduce us, or to entertain us, and to perhaps challenge you for saying, hey, guess what I did? I did a tall tale.